Hey everybody, this is Brian. I'm with producer Allison Weiner.
Hi.
We are actually in the Amarillo airport, just trying to knock out this podcast real quick before our flight. We're on our way out of town. This is actually the closest airport to the Oklahoma and Kansas area, where we've been covering the murders of the two moms, Jillian and Veronica.
Jillian Kelly. Veronica Butler.
We were here doing a lot of digging into several different things, which we're going to get into, but also there was a court hearing for the fifth suspect who was arrested, Paul Grice. It was similar to last time, a lot of security at the courthouse. This is Dallas County, Oklahoma. Small courthouse, but again, when we showed up, there was a sniper on the roof. They had a ton of deputies out in the parking lot. They search you before you go in. Obviously, there's this religious cult group, God's Misfits. Do you think that's the reason for all the security, or what do you think?
No,
it is?
I think it is that everybody has a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, even the prosecutor in the courtroom, one of the prosecutors, it's open carry. It's an open carry state, so a lot of people have guns, and I think, and there are it's a small town and a lot of friends of the defendants, and also a lot of people in town are really angry at them. So I think that's probably the best way for them to, keep things safe.
Yeah.
I do think there is a credible threat.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of security. If they must know something. So what they do there, it's again a small town. They actually bring the suspects, the defendants in the patrol cars, and then they walk them right through the parking lot in. So Paul Grice charged with murder, kidnapping, and other charges. I was able to be outside right when he came in and even ask him a couple questions. Take a look. Paul, is there anything you want to say to the victims' families?
Sorry for their loss.
Anything you want to say to your family?
I miss them. I love them.
So it was interesting that he answered a couple of my questions going in, which I don't know. I've had that happen a couple times.
Really? I had never seen that. I thought that was pretty amazing.
Maybe a handful of times. Usually they just ignore me, like when it's a perp walk. So it was interesting. What do you make of that he answered?
I was really surprised, and it was interesting because I was actually talking with some other people in town, and they're kind of angry at him for expressing a sympathy for the victims.
Yeah.
They thought it was manipulative. It's the few people. It's not a total town sample, but the few people that I spoke with, and I don't know. I thought it was very odd. Maybe he supposedly confessed, at least according to the police, and we should all keep in mind that even in the affidavits where there are confessions or they're saying Grandma Tiffany told them where the bodies might be, whatever we're hearing about that, you got to wait to see what the defense attorney says, because they may try to get any of that so-called confessions thrown out.
Right, we haven't actually heard.
We have not heard it.
So he spoke going in, and then they brought him out the same way. I waited outside, and I asked him on the way out if he had anything to say specifically about God's Misfits, which is the group, again, the anti-government group that police say he's in and that the other suspects are in. And that time he just stayed totally quiet and just looked straight ahead. We're going to be boarding soon, so we'll get through this. But so I want to ask you, though, I stayed outside because I really wanted to ask him those questions, but Allison went into the courtroom. Tell us about what it was like in court.
Well, in court it was very empty compared to the last time we were there when the other four defendants were arraigned, or not arraigned. Actually, it was a bail hearing, and they all were denied bail. So this was another bail hearing until the defendants get representation. And Paul Grice did not have representation yet, so until they get representation, but it was strangely empty. The family of Veronica Butler was in the back of the courtroom in the last row. The father was there, and it's hard to compete with the woman in the boarding.
Yeah, it is loud. Hopefully the sound's coming through.
Yeah, well, the father of Veronica Butler was sitting in the back. He was still terribly distraught. His eyes were bloodshot from crying. His face, the man is in really bad condition, and my heart went out to him. There was sniffling again. I just think it's good that he's there to stand up for his daughter, but I think it's been very, very difficult for him and for all the families.
Yeah, last time we were in court, when the first four suspects had their bond hearing, Veronica's dad was very emotional and even was lunging towards the suspects, was cussing yelling at them. It was really an intense experience, but this time it seemed much calmer.
Well, Paul Grace didn't even look at anyone. His head was kind of bent down. You know, he had his hands chained, his legs chained. He was not busy being as communicative as he was with you. There was nothing. And he seemed to show deference to the court. Yes, Your Honor. It just was a little bit different, you know, when Grandma Tiffany came in, or even when Tad came in. There was sort of almost a contemptuous, well, I shouldn't say contemptuous, but a look at the group there. He made eye contact with people, and so did she.
Yeah.
So it was different,
yeah,
different mood in there, different vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that we were able to obtain on this trip, which I'm going to show you right now, is this video of Grandma Tiffany Adams. This is her at a local store checking out. This is 4 days after the murders, so it's early April, I believe. And it's just kind of eerie to look at this video knowing what she's accused of doing 4 days earlier, and everything that we've been able to gather is it was a very brutal murder. I mean, Allison was able to confirm that, you know, the victims were not shot, and there was a lot of blood, so we believe it was really a brutal killing. And when you look at this video, again, it's just kind of eerie knowing what she's accused of, that it's only 4 days later, and then also you were really honing in on the grandkids. The fact is that
it was so strange. When you look at this video, you'll see these children are with their grandma, not knowing that she killed their mother or allegedly killed their mother. So it gives you this terrible feeling of they don't know that their whole world has changed overnight, and they're playing and they're happy, and you just know, we know what's to come.
Yeah, it was very eerie to see that video, and something that would normally just be so ordinary, and why would we care about video of someone checking out? But in a situation like this, again, knowing that it was just days after the murders, super sad, and just, again, I think it just, for me, is just eerie to watch.
It's eerie. You know what else is eerie is there's a photo of Paul Grace on Facebook at an Easter celebration, which is, again, a day after the murders, or 2 days after the murders. Well, not exactly, yeah. And he's got a hat on, a crown on. I mean, it's also the same sort of feeling you get of, do these people actually allegedly killed 2 young women, 2 moms, and then went about their daily lives?
Yeah. Something else we did this week is went out to the Twombly's house, which is, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, like everything else pretty much around there. And next to their house, our plane arrived, but I think we still have time. Next to their house is this old abandoned school, and Allison and I had been hearing from the beginning, really, that that the God's Misfits group met either at an abandoned school or near an abandoned school, and the neighbors basically confirmed that to me, said that there were these meetings on the weekends. So I want to show you this. I got some video out there at the Twombly's house and then by the school.
So disturbing.
It is, yeah. It's kind of like a horror movie. Take a look. So this is where the Twombleys lived. This is where they lived when they were arrested. You can see the welcome sign right there in the front driveway. These are their dogs running out. But what's interesting is right next to their house is this old abandoned school right here in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's totally surrounded by farmland. This is called the old Plainview School. Told that it closed a couple of decades ago. But what's interesting is we've heard from people in town that this is where the God's Misfits meetings were held at times, which is a little confusing to the neighbors because it would be difficult to get into the school because it's all locked. But they also did tell me that there were times they would come by and they would see 12 or 15 cars out here, and it looked like there was some kind of meeting. And another interesting thing, you can see it's all overgrown. I mean, it's been abandoned for quite some time, but what's also interesting is you see this door of this on the school is all boarded up. One neighbor told me that when police came to investigate the murders and arrested the Twombleys, they actually kicked in the window there of the school to go inside as part of the investigation. What they found, we don't know. It's kind of eerie if you look inside the school through the window. I mean, it's all just relatively untouched from decades ago. You can even see there's like trophies in a case down there. So whether or not the meetings actually happened here, we can't say for sure. But again, people in town say they believe this is where the God's Misfits meetings were. And neighbors say they definitely saw gatherings of cars out here and believe this may also have been where the meetings were, either inside the school, maybe behind the school. And again, the Twombly's lived in the house right over there.
We were talking about God's Misfits, and I wanted to point out too about God's Misfits. We keep talking about it being an anti-government group. You know, you keep saying that, but it's also a group that's based in religion. So these people are supposed to be super religious and warriors for Christ, and they're having these meetings, and it's quite disturbing that these are the people that allegedly killed the two women. So I think it's something to keep in mind that when there is an organization that is like rooted, you know, an anti-government organization rooted in religion, wearing probably in cult territory.
And a lot of people have been questioning in the community whether there's going to be more arrests. Again, when I was out there, neighbors were saying, yeah, 12 to 15 people would meet out here. Is it possible that other people in the group maybe didn't know everything about the murders or were involved, but maybe knew something? I think that
we were actually
all that's
talking
under
about
investigation.
That because there are several names in the affidavit. The cooks who had the children overnight while the murders were taking place, the cook, Mr. and Mrs. Cook, and there is also a grandmother who allegedly knew what was going to happen because her grandson, Wrangler, who is the father of the children, Veronica's children, one of the victims, he also said, well, she claimed that she was told that by Wrangler that this wasn't, the custody issue wasn't going to be a problem anymore.
Interesting, yeah. So, and the authorities have said everything is still under investigation, so we'll have to see how that plays out. We also, we spent a lot of time trying to track down people who knew the suspects, who knew the Twombleys, who knew Tad Cullum, and we were able to meet with a man who knew pretty much everyone involved, and especially Cole Twombly, since he was a young boy,
and Cora as well,
and Cora too. And what we found out, you know, we had already known that like Grandma Tiffany was on the hospital board at one time, GOP chairperson, and you know, these are people who were influential in the community. And we learned also that Cole was the president of the 4-H club,
and Cora was the secretary,
which is just so strange. I mean,
they held positions. It's a small town, but they held positions of power and of influence.
Yeah. And the man we interviewed, his name just escaped me.
It's Ted Embry.
Ted Embry, that's right.
And he actually was a bit older than the defendants, but he knew everybody and went to, you know, has lived in this community a long time. And he was able to give us some background on Cole specifically, and also what he saw as the birth of God's Misfits.
Yeah, I asked him specifically about Cole and Cole's religious beliefs. Listen to what he said to us. What was your reaction when you found out that Cole wanted to be a preacher?
I thought, who in the hell would want to go to that church, you know? Well, good for him, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't know how in the world you can be one thing and then all of a sudden just roll over and you're something else.
But why do you think the Twombleys ended up in this group, God's Misfits? I mean, you've known Cole since he was a child.
I think it was a financial deal, and I think he's always looking for some way to get a dollar out of somebody, I guess.
When you say financial deal, I mean, because we know that Tiffany, Adams, and Tad, other suspects, had quite a bit of money. I mean, do you think that he was motivated by that to be part of the group, or?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he started it and they come to him. I think they all come together about the same time.
It was interesting what he said about the financial motivation.
Yeah. Well,
what did he mean by that? I had to ask you a couple times what you thought he meant.
I think he was talking about the fact that Cole never really had a great business acumen, and that he wasn't a terribly hard worker, and these are things that he said to us, and that he also said on camera. But he also was talking about that he had suspicions that he had started this church as a way to make some money for financial benefit. And you know, he's not the first person to have a church where they ask you to give money to it. So I can't. We're not saying that is so terribly wrong, but he said that for Cole, he probably was looking for an easy way to make some money.
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, and that he also, I mean, we have a long interview, we only played a clip, but you know, he also said Cole was an alcoholic, became an alcoholic, that they wouldn't really work very much, stayed, you know, slept in till the afternoon. He wasn't very impressed. He's known Cole since he was a kid. He didn't seem very impressed with the man.
You know, the
Cole
thing that
had
really that really captured my attention is he said that as recently, he hadn't seen him in a couple of months, so maybe he had sobered up, and that prior to that he used to order like a gallon of some sort of whiskey every month, I guess it was, or I don't know. He used to order. He said that he used to order a lot of whiskey, and that so maybe, as far as he knows, maybe he's sober now. But the last time I'd seen him was just a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So he just was skeptical of his becoming a preacher suddenly and being a man of God, and not so sure he'd want to be, totally sure he didn't want to be at that church.
And he had also had dealings with Paul Grice. They had met up on like a business dealing with something that they were working together on. He was selling Paul something?
Yes,
or something?
he was selling Paul something.
And that was after the murders, which is interesting to hear him talk about that. And I said, well, did Paul Grice act strange at all? And he said, well, I got this weird feeling. I didn't want to do business with him anymore. I don't know what it was, but a feeling came over me. That was interesting.
And there was also the issue of him that Paul Grice and that they carried was it Paul Grice that carried the sidearm?
It
Or was it just Cole?
It was Paul Grice and Cole.
Right.
Yeah.
So Paul Grice and Cole both carried, it's an open carry state, and apparently, although all these guys have guns, very few people carry them on their hip, especially during a business deal.
Yeah.
And we heard this from another source as well, and they thought it was odd.
Yeah.
We sort of thought, well, why would you think that's odd? But apparently it is.
It was interesting. He said to us, look, we all have guns. Like, he even said, I've got a gun close to me right now. That's just the culture. I mean, they're ranchers, they're farmers. It is what it is. That's
I've
what
got
it
a
is.
gun near me, so don't ask a bad
Yeah.
question.
No, right. So, but he said, when something about Paul and Tad having the gun visible when they would meet for business transactions, he just found to be unusual. He said, we don't really do that way.
I totally thought back to the other source that we had talked to who said exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So it was an interesting couple of days. Again, I can't believe how much we drove. I can't. The tanks of gas you go through on these trips. We were in Oklahoma, we were in Texas, we were in Kansas. We're close to New Mexico, Colorado. Everything is spread out, people are starting to open up and talk to us, though. And,
I think that they were before. I think, though, there's still a few people waiting to see if other people are going to be arrested. I think there is some concern about these defendants making bail.
Yeah.
I don't think that Paul Grice is thinking he's going to be making bail based on the comments he made to you that he misses his family.
And he also can't afford a private attorney, which is interesting.
So,
He's gonna have a public
they're
defender.
capital crimes. It's very rare for someone to get bail in a capital crime.
So we will stay on the story. We're leaving town now, but we'll be back when there's any developments. And I think we got to board our flight soon.
Okay.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.